Welcome back, Giants. Are you ready for another episode? And do you want to learn how to break up proof your relationship? We might talk about that. We'll see. But hang with us. We got another great episode for you. Good morning, Giants. Welcome back to Wake Up with Giants TV. I'm Nicholas Smith. I go by Nick, and I'm partnered here with Andrea Bangeter. We're glad to have you guys here again. I'm going to pop up the banners real quick. If you're not following us on YouTube, please go and subscribe. That's where you get notifications when we go live every single dang time. Plus, it helps us to spread the message of the Giants. And so every subscriber allows YouTube to actually start monetizing our channel and help us to grow even more. And so we'd love your help around that. If you haven't checked out my12journeys.com, we've done a complete revamp of the community there. So you'll see all of the shows, the Tribe of Giants, and our other communities as well. Blog posts, articles, things to support you in becoming a giant. Also, you'll see our SG program. We're doing market research right now on the SG program. SG stands for Sum Gigante, which means I am giant in Latin. And so our goal is to help you to become a giant through our 6-week intensive program. So right now we're diving deep into figuring out the best way to deliver that. Outside of that, just keep being a part of our community, spread the message here. Join us at Tribe of Giants on Facebook. We've got a 4,200 member community and growing right there. And as we go through the show today, we will pull your comments on the screen. So feel free to comment as those will be integrated in. Andy, any thoughts before we dive in? Anything you want to share?
I'm just excited to have Susie and Otto here today because I loved visiting with them last time. So
that was awesome. Yeah.
I'm excited to have another conversation.
We're going to dive even deeper. And I think life gets even more relevant as we go. We find the lessons pop up as you go through for the next show. So we'll go ahead and introduce, and then we'll jump into the conversation here. So today we're joined by Susie and Otto Collins. They're spiritual leaders, breakthrough relationship coaches, and authors who are changing the way people experience love. So I got my screen right here. Through their books, programs, and their Love Made Easy podcast, they've helped thousands of people break free from relationship struggles and step into true connection. They've been featured in major platforms like Huffington Post, BBC Radio, Yahoo Shine, and they're here today to awaken us all to new possibility, that love doesn't have to be hard. So let's give a warm welcome to Susie and Otto Collins. Thanks for being here, guys.
It's great to be here with you. Totally.
Yeah. Well, we know you're stacked full of wisdom, and we're going to try and draw that out today. We're going to start kind of in the non-conscious part of love and relationship. And for us, like, would you define what relationship is to you real quick? Does it have to do with couples and partners, or does it go beyond that? Can you expand for us there?
I think we're in relationship with everyone.
And everything.
And everything. Mm. And there's a word that if you're around us very long, you'll hear us use this word a lot, which is connection. So do you feel a connection with the people that are in your world? Do you feel a connection to the Great Spirit? Do you feel a connection to the earth, to the people in your life? Everything. It's that connection. That's where, that place is for me in relationship. I don't know if you have anything else that the way you see it, Susie.
No, I see it that way too. A relationship is a relationship, and there are so many different levels. And so many, because a friend, there are levels of friendship, there are levels of love, there are levels of, so a relationship, no matter who you're with, no matter what you are, it's love, how you show up. It's how am I creating that other person? Am I thinking that she or he is really irritating, or how am I creating that other person and the relationship with yourself. So yeah, we're always in relationship.
So I think
go ahead. I was thinking like when we do create people a certain way, we enter the room and we have these misconceptions. We have this idea of how this person's going to be, or they're going to do this. That's what we're going to find. We're going to take whatever it is and we're going to make it, make sense to us in our story, in our mind. And it's not exactly the greatest thing.
No, so to let all of that go, any idea of who another person is. Well, in fact, I'll even go a step backwards, which is it's your way of seeing yourself. It's your way of seeing the other people in your world, and it's your way of seeing the world that kind of determines all of this.
And you miss out. That's the big thing is if you're coming into a room, like you said, Andy, and you've got these judgments about these people, you're the one that misses out on something that could be really wonderful to find out, to experience, whatever. But I realized, during COVID, we all had all kinds of things going on, but I slowed down enough to just be with the people in the neighborhood when I was walking and to actually talk to them and find out their names. And, instead of judging their dogs or their whatever. And what a blessing. So we're the ones that miss out when we have all these judgments and think that we know who these people are.
Well, let's go a little deeper on that, because there's a place where that all comes from. So if we look at the non-conscious part of relationship, for the 12 journeys, when we're talking about that, the non-conscious is all of the programming. It's the ability of the brain to adapt to its environment, to adapt to other people. And then we have this conditioning and this creation that happens prior to our consciousness of it. So we're not quite aware of it, but we're automatically making these judgments of people. And it's usually based on who we think we are. And so I'd love for you to dive into the non-conscious part of relationship. Is how do we become what you're describing here? The person that walks in the room and starts judging, or the person that misses out. How does that all come to be? And then the next step would be, how do you wake up to that? Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah. Great question.
Probably where I would start with that question would be with the two words, what if? There's a good friend of ours who uses the term what if up instead of what if down. And you walk into a room and you're wondering, well, what if I could have the most wonderful conversation with this person instead of, oh my God, I can't believe she's wearing that. A very small thing.
Andy, that kind of happened last night, right?
Don't get along. Like,
yeah.
I walk into the room looking different than everybody else. And, I felt some energies,
Yeah.
I didn't know I was going pit stop there and onto something else where I would blend in.
Yeah, absolutely. But it's what if, and walking through your life from that place of what if I could connect with this person instead of, just what you think, what you see, what you imagine, what you make up, because automatically you're already in a place of disconnection if you're looking for the bad. Because if you're looking for the negative in someone else or something else, I promise you can find it.
Yeah.
And if you're looking for the good, if you're looking for what's new, if you're getting curious, I promise you can find an amazing person inside that other person if you go looking.
Yeah. So keep going, and then I'll expand here, but go ahead, Susie.
Well, I was just going to say that's the conscious part.
Yeah.
The unconscious part that you're talking about is what we've all seen in other relationships. Growing up, It just seems natural that everybody, I don't know about you, but my family was judgy, so I learned that it was just common.
Mm-hmm.
And it just feels like the unconscious part, we learn to, I'm superior in this way. I'm better than you in this way. And there's a lot of competition. What Otto's talking about is the conscious part, that we do have a choice. We don't have to stay in those old patterns.
Yeah. So that question that Hugh posed, how do you look at the spiritual first? Well, I think to me, that would be more of a practice. You practice that and then it becomes innate. But everything that we are is innate only because we've either witnessed it or practiced it. Mm-hmm. Is there more to say around that?
Well, I look at life as everything is spiritual.
Okay.
Everything. So, and I have a choice. And I can show up in a certain way. You think you don't have a choice because it feels automatic, but when you slow down, you do have a choice.
So yeah, Otto, go ahead.
I'll say about that is, I think that we're all living with just the nature of being human. There's a term I use for this being human, and I call it spiritual amnesia. Is we forget who we are, we remember, we forget, we remember, and we do that until the Great Spirit says time's up. And then as we go through life, we get more, hopefully, we become more and more conscious. We are not the same people that we were, years ago when we were trying to defend our positions and stay stuck in our fears and our judgments and our doubts and all those kind of things. And then hopefully we grow and we continue to see the truth of who we are. And as you do that, the fear starts to fade away. And then you start to show up more and more of the time as true love, true connection, and you start to see the divine in everyone. I am nowhere near perfect at this, but it happens more and more of the time than it used to.
Yeah. So if we look at not only that, you're not who you used to be, you're also not in relationship with who you used to be in relationship with. And so I think there are some times where we bring forward and project on the new person all the old patterns or experiences as though they are that, but they're not that. How do you handle that so that you're not doing that?
Well, you've got to come to consciousness.
Okay.
Yeah, when we were first together, Otto kept thinking that I was his ex-wife in certain ways. And it's like, I just kept saying, I'm not your ex-wife. I'm not that person. And he finally got it. He's a smart guy. You have to wake up.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because your show is Wake Up with Giants. Well, that's waking up. No, this is not the same relationship. This is not the same person.
But not
being willing to see that is so huge.
But to not only see it, but then to shift it, because you can wake up to it and then just automatically go back into old patterns, right?
And that's a choice.
Yeah, that's the choice.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's what a lot of people run into. And that's why they never break the cycle, because they go right into those old patterns and they think, oh, it's a different person, it's going to be different. But yet their patterns remain the same. And they're either, thinking the worst in this person, projecting onto this person, and just going through this loop again. And this didn't work out. And it's not because of the person, it's because of the patterns.
Yeah, what you're saying is exactly right, Andy, because I was thinking, I was saying that Otto thought I was his first wife.
Yeah.
But I have similar tendencies, controlling. Got to be in control, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I don't hold on to things like she did. So there is an element that he was triggered by. So what you're saying is right, Andy. There was a pattern. But my reaction was different. I could listen. And so you don't have to stay stuck in that. Well, this person is going to react exactly that way.
There's a similarity. It doesn't mean that even though there's a similarity and okay, this person's acting this way, there's degrees.
Well, and we've made up that similarity. We've made up this person is like. So when you go to, so you're automatically trying to put them in, you know, when you say this person is like, you've already put them in a box instead of coming from that place of curiosity about them. So you've already labeled them how you projected. Yeah, this person is like, and it's like, oh, please. Yeah.
It's very unfair to a person to do that.
Yeah.
And it's unfair to yourself.
I remember initially when Nick and I started dating, he would say, this is a new experience. You're a new person. You know, you're not my ex, you're not here. Everything here is fresh and new. We're not going to go back here. You know, you're a different person. It's a different experience.
And it wasn't just enough to say that. Like now the practice is to really live that, because holy crap, did stuff come up.
Ooh.
Yeah. And it would happen in the other direction too, is like, I'm not her ex, she's not my ex, but we have these protectors that show up in our relationship, and those protectors are constantly scanning for our protection. So they look for similarities and patterns because it hurt, right? It didn't feel good. We don't want to go through that again. Can you speak to that a little bit? How do we know what's a protector? How do we know what's healthy and what's not working?
Well, I was going to say that these are just places to heal. When you get to that point where you see, oh, I just got triggered here. There's must be something here. You know, like Otto and I talk about this. He had this tone of voice that I just, you know, it was really awful when we were first together. And I got defensive, and then he would get defensive, and well, you know, that's the way it usually goes. Until I just stopped and I thought, I want connection with this guy. I don't want to fight with him. So when I just stopped, it was like I realized, oh, that's kind of my father that I thought was, you know, had this condescending tone of voice. And then it was like, I just stopped and told Otto. And then he said, well, I thought I was afraid I couldn't fix your problem. So I was, you know, he admitted that he was feeling uneasy too. So when you can stop and actually look inside and pause, then you can see something different and you can make another choice.
Slowing it down within yourself, and then slowing it down in the connection between you and another human being. That's huge. Yeah.
Recently I created an app. Should I read the creed here, Andy? Or
he did this while slowing down.
We get so reactive, you know, when we get triggered, you know, our old wounds show up, and then we get triggered, and then we respond from that trigger. And I don't want to be that in my relationship. So it has nothing to do with her and what she's doing, because that could be a black hole. If I constantly put it over there on Andy of, I need you to do this, and then when she does that, I move the goalpost. Well, we're never going to arrive at relating, right? And so I put together an AI application that helps me to re-anchor with who I want to be in relationship. And if I don't do it with her, I'm going to have to do it with somebody else. And I'd rather do it with her. Speaking honestly, she's pretty easy to work with. So I want to read this. And then, you know, that the idea there was though because sometimes you're triggered and you're right in it and you respond from the trigger. And then there's times where it happened and you're reflecting on it from after the trigger. And that's another chance to rebuild. And then there's the salient practice of, I'm going to be something different. And then you have to habituate that. And so that's where I wanted to come from. So maybe we can play off of this, riff off of this a little bit. So here's the creed. So if I don't face this now, I'll face it again. Might look different on the outside, different face, name, story, but the same wound will show up. That's not punishment, that's mercy. God doesn't let me skip lessons that are meant to free me. I've learned this isn't about the other person changing, it's about me. Me staying grounded even when fear shows up, me choosing presence over panic, me facing the parts I've avoided. Because the truth is, this fear is old. It doesn't start with hurt. It started with experiences that taught me love leaves, that safety is unpredictable, that if I don't stay alert, I'll get hurt. So I've been trying to protect myself, reading into things, imagining worst case scenarios, reacting to stuff that's not even real, and it's not fair to her. She's not the villain in my past. She's not responsible for my triggers. She shouldn't have to carry the weight of what others broke. This is mine to clean up, and I finally get it. Avoiding relationship doesn't heal me. Walking away when it gets uncomfortable doesn't set me free. Safety isn't found in leaving. It's built by staying. So here's where I plant my flag. I won't run from love to protect my ego. I won't chase love to quiet my fear. I'll stay, I'll feel, I'll own my part, and I'll let go of the idea that love is earned or kept by performance. I'm not here to be perfect. I'm here to be real. I want to love from wholeness, not from fear, to give, not grip, to trust, not test, to speak what's true, not bury in silence. I don't want to keep living out the same pattern in a different relationship. So if not here, then where? If not now, then when? This is where I face it. This is where I heal it. And no matter how the story unfolds, I'll know I showed up honest. I'll know I showed love. I loved from truth. I'll know I didn't run. That's who I'm becoming. That's the man I choose to be. As you hear that, like what immediately pops out for you?
Well, there's a lot there, and we could talk about that for like the next 3 days.
Yeah.
Because there's so much in each sentence. I mean, we could take a sentence at a time and just go, literally, it was so powerful. And as a declaration as to what you're seeing now that's different for you, and what you want to you want to evolve into, and how you want to be in this moment as a stand for yourself and the people in your world.
Well, I love it because you're taking responsibility.
Yeah.
And you know, that's what a lot of us don't do in relationships. Is it's all the other person's fault. Whatever's going on with me is the other person. And you're taking complete responsibility in that. So that's really
she can't do it for me. Nobody can do it for me. I can't put that responsibility on somebody else. But it's one thing to understand it and know it, right? It's a separate thing to be it. And so for me, that's a practice because it shows up. It keeps showing up in my relationships, either with Andy or anybody else. It'll show up, and it's there for a reason. If I got out of relationship with Andy, yeah, I might be okay for a minute by myself. But man, if I get back in relationship, I got to face that all over again. And I don't want to get out of relationship with Andy. She's too amazing. Yeah.
I totally agree.
So how do we, so looking at, a person wants to become this in their relationship, and they make that stand and they say, okay, I'm going to do this. And like you said in the beginning, it wasn't clean. It wasn't easy. You were reading into things. There was a lot to unpack. You're with new people. How do you do that? How do you live this?
Well, it's a day to day, minute by minute process of a choice that I make. Am I going to show up as love or fear? Because that's all, that's all there is, love or fear. And what do I want most? What I want most with Otto is connection. I love connecting with Otto. Yeah. And if I'm in my little pity party or whatever it is I go to, controlling whatever, I'm not in love. I'm not in connection with him. So there's got to be something that you want more than defense, than being right. Because we all want to be right. And there's got to be something more that you find in yourself that you want more than that. And that was the impetus for me. That is the impetus for me, to just love him.
One of the things that really works for me is, and I keep going back to, how do you see the other people in your world? I'm consciously creating Susie as, if you're around me very often, you'll hear me refer to her as the incredible Susie Collins.
I like that.
Well, not only do I like that and I love that, but I create her as that. So what I do is I'm looking for ways that she's incredible instead of the ways that she's not.
Ooh, that's big. Yeah.
If I look at, so very often I'll look at her and I'll say, Susie, I really appreciate who you are. I appreciate how you are in my life. I appreciate the support you give me, the love you give me, the kindness, the caring, the connection, your interest in some of the things I'm interested in. I'm consciously wanting to go back to, what do I love, like, and appreciate about her? Because I will promise you that if you gave somebody 6 months of focusing on all the stuff you disliked about the other person, you could be divorced in about 6 months. Mm-hmm. But if you are focused on, what is it that I love about this person, and you have that as a creation that you are constantly looking for to support and to reinforce your conscious idea of this person. Who are they? She's incredible. How do I know that? Well, let me make a list of the 1,500 ways that she is. I've got evidence to support that. And I could also, as I said, I could find the 1,500 ways that she's not incredible, and we could be divorced in 6 months.
Or faster. Yeah. Yep. Yeah. So the word connect, it's a bind together. Yeah. And you're either doing that, or you're creating that, or you're not. You're creating ways to fall apart. And I look at Andy and it's there is a curated side and there's the behind the scenes. And they're not really any different for us. The curated and the behind the scenes are, you can come into our back, what is it? Behind the scenes.
Mm-hmm. You could be a fly on the wall.
Yeah. And you'll see it. And it doesn't mean that we don't have our struggles. It's just simply that we do take time. She will reach out and say, I appreciate you. Mm-hmm. And people don't ever hear about that. They don't see that text message from her. The good morning, beautiful. Good morning, lova, like that kind of stuff. They don't see that. But on the surface, we could show, on Facebook, we're doing great and we're amazing. And then behind the scenes be an absolute wreck. And how would you, I guess the how question is more the technical on that, but what would you advise somebody that's maybe struggling on the behind the scenes of, I haven't been doing that. I haven't been building my partner up. What would you say to them?
Get real, get honest with yourself. And you can start in the moment.
Yeah.
As I keep saying, it's a choice. So in the moment, I'm not going to do this anymore. I'm not going to tear him down or her down, and I'm not going to talk to my friends about how awful he is or whatever.
Yeah.
But I'm going to be honest with myself here. And maybe the relationship isn't what you want. You have to be honest there too.
Yeah.
But if you really want to be with this person and you're just not appreciating him or her, or you're not doing the things that would generate love, then you have a choice to make a change.
There's also an aspect of really checking in with yourself to see why it is you're hiding. So let's say that you are not really being open with your partner or another person in your life, And so you're just not. And so to ask yourself a question like, what would it mean to me? Like, why, what's my hesitation if I were to open myself further to this person?
Mm.
And then you start to really ask yourself why I hold back. And if you ask yourself from not from a place of beating yourself up, but from a place of genuine curiosity, what am I protecting here? It's a really powerful question. What am I protecting? What am I afraid of?
Mm.
And questions like that. And when you really open yourself to seeing that, then most of the time, if not all of the time, you get to see that there's nothing really to protect except for the story that you've made up. And all of those stories that you've made up that are about protection are all stemming from something that happened in the past that you've brought into the present moment that you're still afraid of.
Mm.
So you still brought that from the past into the present moment, and you're living out of that instead of starting this moment fresh and new.
Yeah. Andy, thoughts on that?
Well, kind of going back, I think of it as like watering your flowers, watering your plants. It's a conscious decision to be actively putting into that relationship. And, what does it take? It needs a little more soil, needs a little more water, needs some sunshine. And it's not just a one and done. I said, I love you. I licked him. He's mine. And it's all good. The plant's just going to survive. So with that, making it a conscious effort, doing that. And then, when we're acting out of fear, I think you are holding yourself back. So if you're in a relationship and you're like, oh, I don't want to get hurt. I don't want to get hurt. So you are acting out of fear. You're not putting 100% in. And guess what's going to happen? You're going to get the same result again. Because if you're staying back and withholding that, because I don't want to get hurt. How will you know? You'll never know. And then you're back to square one again because it's not going to work out.
With somebody else or new face, same problem, just new face, right? Yeah. So the other day I was talking to a friend and I won't share for, privacy reasons, but we talked about guilt and shame. And I thought this was interesting is that guilt and shame are social feelings and thoughts or constructs that help us to rebond with the people we care about. Now, the guilt, we might feel guilty over doing something because as a character, our character is we don't want to be that. Or we might feel shame because we don't want to be that in relationship to another person. But if we're coming from love and that's who we want to be, then those can be tools that could help us. I think shame gets kind of edgy there. But the guilt is a natural response. It's wired into us to want to rebuild that connection. So we want to heal whatever's showing up. Now, if we're coming from fear, then guilt can be used as a tool of manipulation or passive aggressiveness, or shame as well, as it could be used as one of those tools that creates bonding, but not healthy bonding. Do you have some thoughts around that?
I do indeed. When I was hearing you, talk about, guilt and shame, where I immediately go is anytime you're into guilt and shame, you're into the land of the shoulds and the shouldn'ts.
Okay.
And those are all constructs that we've made up.
Yeah.
Someone else should do this. Someone else shouldn't do this. And most of the time, that the shoulds and the shouldn'ts, we've made that up as a way for us to feel safe, to feel loved, to feel accepted,
Superior.
To be superior, to be approved of, to feel wanted, to be sexually desired, any of that stuff. And the guilt and the shame is because I should or I shouldn't have. And it's all made up.
And they put up barriers.
Yeah. So how do we shift that? Because if the word should comes from to owe a debt to something that, like you said, we've made up. But how do you, like, these expectations or these shoulds, is there any way to prevent that? Because we do it to ourselves, and then collectively we do it in relationships. So what do you do with that? How do you navigate that?
You don't play.
Yeah, you just don't. You see it. Oh, yeah. I mean, like my cousin is thinking she's got a lot of guilt. I don't know about shame, but she's got a lot of guilt about her sister taking care of her family, and so she's got this guilt that she's not doing enough. But is that helping? So you have to stop and just wait a minute. I'm not helping the situation. What would help is if I just sent love their way instead of, thinking all these negative thoughts. So it's to me, guilt and shame are a waste of energy. That let's just decide. I don't need to do that anymore. I don't. I can just love that person.
Yeah.
Well, I feel like if you're using guilt and shame with a person and you're expecting lasting results, it's not going to happen.
But what if you do it to yourself, right? If you're doing that to yourself and they're not doing it, right?
Yeah.
Just stop it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, that really is the my favorite definition of forgiveness is to not cause additional harm. And if should is a debt that we think we owe and we made up the debt, then really just walking away from the debt is an option. We don't have to own up to that debt. We don't have to play the game, like you say. And in relationships, I think I often see expectations are those shoulds, like, oh, my partner should do this and they should be showing up this way and they should behave this way. And then that's where the controlling behaviors come in.
Part of the problem with that is they don't know the rules that you've made up.
Yeah.
So if you're going through life with, let's say it's a partner, and you say to yourself, well, they should, and then whatever comes after the should. Now, most of the time, this is all within you.
Yeah.
I mean, there are some things so you want to make the unconscious conscious. And so we have agreements about certain things in our relationship, how we want to be together, how do we want to show up, and to actually talk about that instead of making it up and assuming that the other person knows what your way of seeing the world is and how you'd like your world to be. It's just as simple as saying something to them like, I'd really like it if we could. And then you say whatever it is there for you to say. And then you see if they're interested in that too.
Yeah. So this is where, we're going to dig into some gold here, I think.
Yeah.
I know we are. It's the discerning between a healthy boundary and a fear response, right? Oh, I don't like it when you do this because that triggers me and I would prefer not to be triggered, essentially is what you're saying. So I need you to do this so that I don't have to feel that and not face it. Well, that isn't a healthy boundary at all. Like you say, a boundary would be more of an agreement of, hey, we both think this would be healthy for our relationship. This over here might not be. But how do you discern between coming from fear, and I'm calling myself out here, coming from your insecurities versus coming from a healthy boundary? Like, how do you discern?
Well, the first place I would go is really look at it. Is what I'm asking, what I'm thinking, what I'm requesting, the way I'm seeing her, him, or the relationship, is this coming from some kind of fear, or is this a creation of what is wanted? And there's a huge difference between the two. So if I were to say to Susie, this really triggers me when you do that, that's coming from fear. That's not real. That has nothing whatsoever to do with what's going on between us in the moment.
Yeah.
But if I were to say to her, how would you like us to be in the way of commitment, in the way of monogamy, in the way of how we're going to be kind to each other? We can actually have a conversation about how we'd like it to be. And when you're having a conversation about how you'd like it to be, there's no fear unless you bring fear to the conversation.
Yeah.
It's all a creation.
Well, and I have a kind of a easy example of that. Not too long ago, Otto is he's writing his document, which is kind of like what you were writing with your AI.
Yeah.
And so he was creating that, and he wanted to memorize it. And I'm really good at that. I'm good at organizing. I'm good at, and so what did I do? I jumped in and said, oh, do this. What is it that, what's your first line? What's your second line? So I was manipulating the whole thing. And he just slowed down. He said, this is my document. I'd really like to do it my way. And I heard it. I didn't take it personally. I was like, oh, okay. All right. I stepped in where I shouldn't have. But he had a very simple boundary.
And it's not a boundary as in a negative thing. It's like, I have my own process that I want to try. And very often she's got wonderful ideas
that work for me.
That work for her. And sometimes some of these things actually work for me.
Yeah.
So you don't have to be nasty about, I have a boundary here. And you're not going to treat me this way.
Yeah.
To go along with that, kind of going right back to the beginning of the conversation, say Otto thought Susie just is out there to undermine him. Say he's made these judgments. She's going to undermine me. She's going to take over. She's going to do this or that. She wants this and that. So he has this negative, these beliefs that you're out to get him. And then Susie's coming in and saying, oh, here's a great idea. Here's this and that. But in Otto's mind, just, fictional here, he's thinking she's out to get me. Yeah. So her intent is good and it's coming from the heart. But what if Otto had these prejudgments of Susie that she's out to get him? Is Susie ever going to be able to do it right?
Well, it depends on whether one or both of us slow down enough and tune into, is this helpful?
And my intention was good, but I did not ask him if he wanted help. See, this is really important.
You inserted.
Yes, I got a great idea.
Yeah. What I said was like kind of a separate thing, kind of going back to the previous. Yeah. In your situation, he's like, well, this is what I have in mind. Your intention's good. He has his ideas. You talk about it. It's good. But I guess I jumped on the tangent to if you were thinking, like going to the room with that negative.
Because if he had, kept, my ex-wife was controlling, so this he's controlling. If he had that in his mind, yes.
Then it would have.
Yeah.
And there's something I want to share that's foundational here. That is, when you're looking at another person, there's always going to be stuff that's different, and there's differences between you, and these differences are apparent. And it is so often what happens is we see these differences in somebody else, and we see that this is something that if they just change this, that everything would be magically fixed and perfect and beautiful and great. And so we most of the time look at the differences between us and another human as something that's wrong, something that needs changed, and something that needs fixed so that we can be okay.
Yeah.
The shift is, instead of looking at that other person and saying, you're so different from me, how can I fix you or change you? What I see is the real work in a relationship is to look at that other person and say, you're so different from me. What can I learn from you?
This brings up, like, there's so much this week. I won't share names or anything. But the insertion of authority when it's not asked, like the earned authority. So Susie, you have a level of earned authority. So with Otto, you guys have a level of, you've been around, you've been through the hardships. I can handle your advice and wisdom. There was a case where you hadn't earned that in that specific domain, right? So your insertion of authority was unsolicited, unwanted, not necessarily unwanted, but not asked for. And so it was an insertion of authority, which puts us in a position of, kind of superiority in a way of, I know better for you. We had an experience this week with that, of somebody that inserted their authority, and it's like, one, I don't look up to you. Two, I never asked you. And three, what happens here is you get triangulation. You find advocates for your position. And then you subtly use them as justification for your triangulation, right? And so we're not looking for the truth at that point. We're looking for agreement with our point of view. And that can create some huge issues, right? Can you speak to that a little bit? What does that bring up?
Well, I'm doing a book right now that is called Messages from Michaela. Michaela is the highest, best version of me, my guides, and this work is coming through me. And one of the things that are in these messages that was said that I read just yesterday was, no one else can know what's best for you other than you. No one. Regardless of who they are in your world, no one can know what's best for you. And when you really take that in and you're really willing to see, okay, no one else can know what's best for me, then you have the opportunity to really take a look at, okay, with the decisions I'm making here, the way I'm creating my life, am I creating what I'm creating out of fear, or is it a creation as I'm moving towards something? There's also something really important to point out here, is that in the moment, there's nothing ever wrong. And so if you're creating something that you want, great, you're moving toward that. If something is in the past that you don't want to recreate, well, the past is already over. So you're in this moment. But starting in this moment, what would be the best way to love yourself? What would be the kindest thing you could do to yourself, with yourself, for yourself? And then invite that with the people in your world.
I like that. I hear in that, I'll just kind of repeat back what I heard there is you are the one that knows you best. And in relationship, you as a couple are who knows you best in that relationship. And relating, it first starts with you loving yourself and starting there and doing what you need to do for you. And then you bring that into relationship. Then you're not coming from fear. You're coming from creation or love. Right. And I think that's where I've had to navigate a lot, is to not come from fear, to learn to trust, to know that Andy is not my past partners. Wasn't even in the room when they were there, So what I get to do is work on me, so that when I come into relationship with her, then I'm not coming at her, I'm coming in with her.
Yeah, and it's just so important to realize that this was my mode of operation, years ago, and I still carry that, and I don't have to do that right now. I don't have to see Andy or whatever as somebody who runs away, or I don't have to see that. I don't have to believe that.
Yeah.
So it's telling yourself that the past is past, and I can see my how I reacted, and I don't have to do that anymore.
And Susie, one of the most powerful ways you can do that is to really get clear that this person I'm in relationship with, they're not the enemy.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you really get clear that this person that you're in relationship with is not the enemy, then that opens up so many possibilities, because even in a simple conversation, like I could ask Susie, even if I don't want to do things her way about a certain situation, I could ask her, look, you're seeing this really differently than me. Tell me what it is you're seeing and how you're seeing it, because I see it so differently and I want to understand. And it doesn't mean that I have to do it her way or I have to see it her way, but I want to know, what am I not seeing here?
And this isn't the way we started out.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
we've had to learn this, and how to be kinder to one another. And like you say, not see the other person as the enemy, but okay, let me know how you see this. And then we talk about, because we're terrible at remodeling or fixing things in the house. I mean, both of us, we're terrible. So,
Yeah.
but we each have ideas about how something should go. So we've learned to listen to one another. You know, okay, how do you see this, and how do I see this? I know it sounds so simple, but bringing yourself to that point, it's okay. I'm going to listen to what he has to say, and then we'll talk about it. But it's just so important.
Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
Oh.
I was just going to add that this happened yesterday. Susie and I are taking a walk, and there was a question about how we're going to grow a certain part of our business in our outreaches. And I just got really, really quiet, and she just allowed me to be in that quiet while we were walking. And as we were walking, I started to share with her some of my concerns about what she was suggesting. I wasn't making her wrong, because what I was being with was, how can I open to what she was suggesting in the way of expanding our outreaches in our business, and also be mindful of the concerns that I had about the way we would do that. So she just allowed me to be in the quiet for a few minutes. And then we're holding hands while we're walking. So there's no, there's no right, there's no wrong. And then we started to have conversations about, what we could do now, what we could do in the future, and what we might have to shift in our way of seeing things. So it's just honoring each other's way of being and being willing to communicate. Okay, this is what's present for me right now. I just need a moment to digest this and to see what am I not seeing here? And then, as I said, we're on our walk, we're holding hands, and I'm just being quiet because I'm processing what she had just shared, because I felt some resistance to it. And I know it's not resistance to her. There's something within me that was going, oh, this is going to be
fear.
It's going to, some fear, some aspect of this is not going to work. There's, whatever. And I just allowed myself to go through and take a look. Where's this coming from? What's the real issue here? Because that has nothing to do with her. And then as I'm allowing myself not to tamp it down, not to, force it away, and just allow what comes up and what I'm seeing about it to come up, we're talking about it and we're seeing, okay, well, what makes sense now? What can we do in 6 months? Stuff like that.
I like that. Andy, do you want to continue your thought there?
Well, I love how you guys hold space for each other in that. And neither one of you I have the tendency to, out of probably just my past, to when there is conflict and someone has another idea of way of being or fears that they're projecting on me and they're feeling, I have the tendency to go, fine, I won't do it. Fine, I'll change who I am, or I'll make you happy. Mm-hmm. And that is a bad habit. It's a bad thing to give into. Mm-hmm. I it's like, okay, well, how do we solve your problem? But by doing that, I'm creating my own problem because I'm going into resentment. I know my intentions are good. I know I'm not doing anything wrong, but this person on the other end is having issues. And so I like how you guys pause and hold space instead of Susie going, oh, I got to solve this problem for him, or Otto going, I got to solve this problem for her. I'm going to have to comply with this or that or do whatever. I like how there's this pause. Yes. And just allowing that space for each one of you, not necessarily for Susie to make Otto happy with his fears, or vice versa. It's a pause to kind of go, okay, where are we at on this? And just allowing that to happen instead of just what I do.
It's not her job to make me happy.
Right. And I have always thought, oh, I've got the best ideas and I can take over here and I can, blah, blah, blah. So that is my recognition of, wait a minute, back up. Mm-hmm. And just pause, just like you said, Andy.
Well, on the other side of that too, if you're the person that causes the other person to feel that shutdown, like Andy, what you do, then me over here, I've got to look at, how did I create that in her? Right? What am I doing over here that's bringing that up so that she's triggered into old patterns because of my behaviors and what I'm projecting? And so it's a dance. And I think it's an area because we will always relate to somebody. It could be our kids, business partners, things like that. There's this fear of confrontation or conflict. And it's like, I don't want to ruffle feathers or stir the pot. And there are others that are like, absolutely, I want to stir the pot. I feel like in our relationship, me and Andy, it's a little bit of a delicate dance here because I know about her, she will overgive. If I say I need space, she'll be like, fine, you want space? So I'll give you plenty of space. I don't want that. I don't want that from her. I don't want to shut her down. I don't want her to overgive or, go beyond what's comfortable for her. And so I have to step back and look at, okay, how do I put a stop to that? If she doesn't, then how do I put a stop to that so she doesn't overgive and I don't overtake? Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah. And one of the keys here to what you're talking about is there's this magical thing called asking. And this magical thing called asking is if somebody says to you, or if you say to someone, I think I just need some space here. The other person, they've got a lot of options. They could say, okay, well, fine, I'll give you a lot of space. I'll give you all the space you want. Or that other person could say, I'm really hearing that. What would that look like to you? What would you like from me in this moment? What would space feel like? And how can I support you in getting the clarity or the time you need to get clear about this? And the other person, not from a place of fear or from a place of withholding or a place of I'm not good enough or I'm going to overgive, but a true place of curiosity would be, wow, what would that look like to that person? And then you ask. And it's something as simple as it, if you were to say to somebody in your world, I really need some space here. And if they said to you, how can I support you? Or how can I help? Well, instead of this, do this, or I'd really like it if. And you're just having a conversation from a place of love about what you feel like you need in the moment and what would feel good from them. Without the fear, without the guilt, without the judgment, without any of that. and you just talk about what you would like and what would be good.
Yeah, I like that.
Initially, like when this is getting probably a little too much info, but like there was a third party that was kind of just inserted themselves in their opinion and what they saw in Nick's life and everything. And it felt very intrusive. It felt like it was just like an attack at me. Nick's not the person he used to be. You're losing yourself because of me, that kind of stuff. Just that, these third parties that feel like they know it all really should just stay out of it. But at that point, that's when Nick was like, yeah, maybe I do need my space. And I'm like, take it all. Take all the space you want, because I didn't want to keep him from who he is. And I didn't want to be changing him. And so, but once that calmed down and we're able to really look at it, Otto, it was like, how does your space look? What do you need?
And why, right?
I do need, and I know when you get in relationships, people tend to kind of stop doing what they normally do. Oh, I'm not going to the gym so much because we're hanging out so late or whatever. And whereas Nick we would talk a lot. And so I was taking up his morning. We would enjoy our conversations, but he loves to get things done in the morning. He just the second he's out of bed, his brain never stops, but he's going. But he needed that time for reflection, for working on the things that he needs to do, because then he jumps into work. And that time it's become a sacred time. And I honor that for him. But initially, the way it landed, and with that triangulation and all that stuff going on, I'm like, you want space? Space had a different meaning than once it was clarified what his space, what he needs, and what he needs to get back to before Andy came along.
Sure. Yeah.
So.
That's a great example, Andy. It really is. And at the beginning of our relationship, Otto lost several friends, a whole group of friends. I mean, it was not a terrific loss, was it? So you just have to, we got better into the deal.
Yeah, we could have whole conversations.
Yeah.
I guess my point is, where do you want to land? Do you want to, and who do you want to listen to? And listen to deeply inside you, what's the right path for me right now? And I'm not the same person I was, like in Otto's case, I'm not the same person I was years ago. I'm different.
And that's a good thing.
There's a whole picture thing too, is I get to see the entire picture, and so a third party doesn't. They see their point of view, and it's usually the curated view. Oh, you're not doing this. And so they're to be one invited in or uninvited in, like they just come in, they insert. I still have a choice of what I do with that. And I learned pretty quick. I learned a valuable lesson in that of that one, I have this behavior that I do that. And two, that it's not really helping our relationship, right? If somebody's coming in and trying to talk down our relationship, especially when our relationship is good, then I'm looking for protections, and then I'm looking for support for those protections. And then I'm projecting those on my partner. And she's like, what the hell was that? Right? Where did that even come from?
Yeah.
And so of course she's going to get defensive, and of course she's going to come at me the way that she did. And so to really look back of, it's okay that she did what she did. I learned a valuable lesson in all of that. And we learned to talk through it, and I'm a talker. And so, Andy is, she's just absolutely adoring and loving, and she holds space for that. So when I ask for something, she tends to overgive, and I don't want that either, because then she's at a loss, for my gain. And then where do you stop that? Where does that end? Right.
Yeah.
And just to really look at like the situation you're describing, What I would be really subject to do would be to share with that person, I really appreciate your concern, and I got this.
Yeah, that's what I did. Yep. And we had to do that this week with somebody else. It's like,
well,
thank you. We got this.
Yeah, the other people in my life, they don't get to have that voice unless I'm paying them as a coach or a therapist.
Yeah.
I can value. So it's one thing if I invite, it's something else if they're trying to tell me how I should live. And nobody knows how I should live except me.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's being strong in who you are. I know one of the comments was about independent.
Yeah.
It's just knowing who you are and believing that you have the wisdom flowing through inside you that is what you need, not what somebody else means.
Yeah. Man, we barely got through the root journeys here, and we're not going to keep going just for time, but I'm sure, we could go for days, like you say, on this topic, because it's simple and complex. I think we complicate it, but it's really these simple principles that we ignore. And then that creates challenges that now we've got to face and clean up. But as you look at, the importance of who you're being and who you're creating your partner to be. And like you said, Otto, your declaration, it's not enough to just wake up and say, oh, I've got these patterns and I'm aware of that. Now it's like, who do you want to create yourself to be? And who do you want your partner to be? Right. Yeah. And not out of shoulding, right? Out of, this is who I want to create my partner as. That gives you direction to step in a more healthy direction, I would imagine.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, like when I look at, there's other people in my life, and I'll even say, like my son, who's at this moment 35 years old. The greatest thing I've ever done for our relationship was decide that I can't know what's best for his life. And when I do that, I stop trying to change him. I stop trying to fix him. And then I just show up and I love him. And miracles happen when you do that, because then you get to sit back and you watch the miracles unfold as he sees, oh, well, I want to make this shift, or I want to change this, or it's not the right time to leave a job yet, or it is the right time to leave a job, or it's the right time to be in a relationship or not in a relationship. And when I saw that my job wasn't to change my son or to fix him, but my only job was to love him, everything changed.
Ooh, that is incredible right there. So valuable. Is there anything, so we got live viewers on here, there'll be people that watch this show after. Is there something that you feel a nudge to share that maybe we didn't talk about? Maybe a question you wish we would ask you as we wrap up the show here, or some words of advice and wisdom for both of you. So if you want to share that, and then Andy, I'll have you do the same thing, if that's okay.
This has been beautiful. Both of you are just really wise, beautiful people. And I honor you and your relationship.
Thank you.
And this has been a wonderful discussion. I've enjoyed it so much. And, if there's one thing, it's be kind to yourself and be kind to the other people in your life. And when you do that, you show up so differently than if and I don't mean kind as in overgiving, because yes, we all can slip into that, but be kind to yourself and loving. And then what's a kind way I can deal with this? Giving him space, or whatever it is. But, and there's so much that I could talk about, but I think kindness really does matter. And we're often not kind.
If there was one message I would want to share with people, it's that when you really take a look at the truth of who you are, not the personality, not this guy that goes to work at this place, or not this woman that does this, or it's in, not these people that are in this group or that group, or you do this or you do that, but the truth of who you are at your core, at your soul, at the soul level. When you see the truth of who you are, then all the other stuff starts to fade away. And the other thing I would share is that when you start to see that you really will see that there is nothing ever to fear, ever. When you really see that, then there's nothing could be plainer, in more plain sight than that truth, that there's nothing ever to fear, ever.
I like that. Yeah. I think that's our biggest challenge is fear, and the stories we create around fear and protection. Andy, what are your final thoughts here?
I would say just this whole conversation, slowing down with things, like going to our basis. Who are we? Love, connections with everyone else, just going from a place of love and looking at that person as a person and not what they do, this or that, or how annoying they are, or whatever that they are. We all are going through our own things. And I think when you have love, I mean, sometimes, there's fear attached to it. I don't want to lose that love, but also just in love, like if you do live in fear and say something does happen, there was an experience there. And there's growth there, and you didn't hopefully don't allow fear to ruin that for you. So I think with fear, it tends to just rear its ugly head and destroy things. So I think when you're acting in love, I think I just went off on a tangent. I don't know where I'm at, but
yeah.
But just like nurturing it and slowing down with it, not letting that fear to jump in, just slowing down and nurturing it, and not creating these stories in our heads and not allowing that to come in.
Yeah,
I like that. I'm going to share real quick here as we wrap up. For those of you that are trying to step into your best version of yourself for a relationship, if the creed spoke to you and you want to explore that, reach out to us and we'll share what that looks like. But the Love Creed app, I built it for me because I'm messy, and I'm learning. And so we've been in a relationship about 20 months now, and we are far from having it all figured out. And, I look at my contribution to our relationship is I've got a lot to heal when it comes to relationship. So I built this app for me because I tend to get into my patterns and trigger responses. And so I put in there an emergency mode. So in real time, if I'm struggling, I can hit the emergency button and it'll slow me down and put me back to presence and then remind me to anchor into the creed. And then if it's after the fact and I need to reflect back on that, I put a reflective story mode so that I can go through and analyze what happened, the emotions, the story, how I would rewrite that story. And then the third part is the daily habit, because it takes anywhere from 18 to 258 days to create a habit. It's 66 days on average. You really don't start becoming automated until about the 6-month mark. And that's when it really becomes part of your identity. And you do learn faster when there's salient emotion tied into it. That can be as quick as instant if there's enough emotion tied to it. And then I put the creed in there so that I can remind myself to anchor back in that creed. This is who I want to become. So I created this application to help me. And we had somebody pick up the app out of Canada, and she's already getting benefit from it because it's helping her to anchor into who she wants to be. So reach out to us if you want information on that. I'd be happy to share that with you. But please watch this show. I think that's the biggest thing is watch the show again. Go pull the gold from it that fits you. Think of somebody in your world that could use this message and share it with them. Go to susieandotto.com and check out their books, check out their information. We only touched the tip of the iceberg here. of what you guys are doing and how you're impacting relationships. And so I would invite people to continue to follow up with you. You have your own podcast that you're running. And so we'll be able to see that on susieandotto.com. Is that correct?
That's right.
So make sure you follow that. Listen for more wisdom and nuggets. Thank you for your comments, because those comments actually make the show move, and they help us have additional info that we can use to create an amazing show. So we love you. We appreciate you. Go subscribe on YouTube. Go make it a giant day, and we will see you in the next episode. Take care.
Thank you.